What is going on, guys? nKuch here, and today we'll be talking about all of the changes coming to the Crucible with the next week's patch. Today Bungie hosted a live stream where they showcased these changes and talked a little bit about their reasoning behind certain nerfs and buffs. In the background, I'll be playing some of the live stream footage in case you missed it. For the most part, this patch looks very promising and could potentially be one of the best updates we've ever had to the sandbox. Starting things off, we have changes to special ammo. When you die with special ammo, you lose all of it, similar to how heavy ammo works. To compensate for loss of special ammo, boxes will now spawn in every single minute rather than every 2 minutes. I think this is great because it puts a lot more emphasis on consistent primary use throughout a match. Unfortunately, it also makes weapons like the Icebreaker, No Land Beyond, and sidearms a lot more valuable. I simply don't know if it's worth using any sniper if I could simply put on the No Land Beyond, get tons of ammo, and have reduced flinch. That's pretty much the all-around package, and it seems like an obvious choice to every single sniper, and I think that's a big problem moving forward. In addition to the special ammo changes, shotguns are getting some nerfs as well. Aim assist and magnetism on shotguns is significantly reduced when firing from the hip, and mid-air accuracy is also reduced. The big change here is that precision damage is removed on all shotguns other than Chaperone and Universal Remote. That's to be expected. The Chaperone and Universal Remote kind of rely on headshots to get a lot of kills, and I think that these three things in combination with the special ammo nerf is really going to be bad for shotgun warriors. I think shotguns are finally going to be balanced after this patch. I know I've said that a lot in the past, but I really feel like they made a lot of changes to kind of counter shotgun play, and I think this is the one where shotguns are finally put in line. Fast firing pulse rifles are also getting hit pretty hard. The Clever Dragon and Grasp of Malik archetype will now fire 7.7% slower. I saw the stream, and as you can see in the gameplay right now, it does fire considerably slower, and I'm not really too sure that this was necessary. I personally would have liked to see high caliber removed on the Clever Dragon, and that's about it, but I think they actually decided to do more than just that. So the fire rate is now 7.7% slower. High cal on pulses is also nerfed, and flinch on pulses will be reduced in general. So high cal, the flinch on pulses, and the high rate of fire archetypes will now fire slower. So that is a lot of stuff that the Clever Dragon and Grasp of Malik are going to have to deal with, and it's going to be interesting to see if those things can compete with things like the Palindrome and the AS Luna now in Crucible. I personally think that removing the high cal on the Clever Dragon would have been enough, but it seems like Bungie wanted to nerf it more aggressively. Also, low rate of fire pulses will fire 5% quicker. Those are weapons like the Spare Change, and that's something that I'm actually looking forward to trying out. Moving on to auto rifles, low rate of fire autos will have increased damage, and all autos will have increased critical damage. I believe it went from 1.25 to 1.3. Small numbers, but they do make a difference when you're in game. Auto rifles and scout rifles have more mid-air accuracy, and that'll obviously be improved. I'm not too sure if this is enough for them to compete against meta weapons, but it's definitely a start, and a buff is better than nothing. Before, auto rifles were barely used, so for the most part, I'm definitely happy. Finally, we have hand cannons. The first initial shot accuracy is increased significantly, which means no more ghost bullets on the very first shot. As a trade-off, the base range has been reduced by 5 meters, which means we'll be doing less damage at further distances. Bloom will still make you miss shots if you are rapidly firing a hand cannon. I personally don't like the hand cannon range nerf because Bloom still exists, and overall, to me, this is kind of like a nerf, not really a buff. Moving on to subclasses, we'll start with the Hunters. For some reason, Bungie decided to nerf the Blade Dancer super, even though it was already pretty bad. Hungering Blade does not regenerate your health and your shields. Instead, it now immediately regens only your health bar. This is good for taking on groups of enemies, but terrible for 1v1s against shotgunners. Some good use for gunslingers is that throwing knives now deals solar damage. Not the biggest buff, but it's something for a subclass that currently has a pretty weak neutral game. them. Blink changes are coming for all subclasses that have the ability. They didn't really give us any details though, which really sucks. I guess they're kind of keeping it as a surprise. It's most likely going to be a buff as Blink isn't really used that much in Crucible. Moving on to the Stormcaller, we have one great change and one terrible change. First of all, the melee's range is reduced to that of other Warlock subclasses. We'll no longer get mapped by shotgun warriors that finish you off with a melee, which is pretty good, but we're still going to have to see how far Amplitude can reach you. Obviously, once this patch goes live, we're going to get an exact measurement or I guess feel for how far the distance really is. Secondly, we have a change that I don't necessarily agree with, which is that if you run Landfall in your build for the Stormcaller, your super doesn't last as long as it used to. This one came out of nowhere for me, as top tier players don't even run Landfall. Instead, they use Ionic Blink, so I really don't know what Bungie was thinking. Maybe they looked at the stats and most players run Landfall. I'm just honestly not too sure. The last subclass that has changes coming with the patch is of course the Striker Titan. The Juggernaut shield disables quicker when you're in midair, meaning you can't fly around with it for a very long time. You also can't activate the Jug Shield while you're in midair, which seems more than fair in my opinion. The Jug Shield is very frustrating for a lot of players to counter, so I think this was actually a very proper nerf, and I think even strikers would probably agree with this particular change. I think this one was nailed by Bungie. Finally, Bungie mentioned a few exotics that will be getting changed, and those are the Truth, Universal Remote, Shinobu's Vow, and Young Wolf's Howl. I'm not too sure if that's the entire list, but those are 4 that I caught, and we can assume that the first 3 will be getting nerfed, which is good because they're all pretty strong and dominant. I'm just not even gonna get started on Shinobu's Vow. Those things are just incredibly strong, and I definitely think they're going to nerf those. I'd be more than surprised if they buffed them. I think the whole community would just be outraged. So you can assume that the Truth, Universal Remote, and Shinobu's Vow are going to be changed, whether it be a flat out nerf or just maybe something that makes it a little bit more balanced. That's gonna do it for the video, guys. Overall, I think these changes are pretty good, but I think a lot more could have been changed, such as the Scories artifact and maybe magnetism on sticky grenades. Thank you all for watching. If you guys enjoyed it, definitely drop a like on the video as it supports the channel. Subscribe for more daily content. Have a great day, and I'll see you all later. Peace.